I'll be walking down the street and I wouldn't know and I would just start crying and it would be so embarrassing. I didn't know why I was crying.
The most challenging part of the depression for me is it can make small tasks feel like climbing mountains.
My stomach hurts so much, or I'm in so much pain.
When people were mean to me, I assumed I deserved to be bullied and called names and things like that.
All these things, what happens is that they come together and then they put you in this negative loop that keeps you trapped.
I was literally a dead person that was just masking myself and just trying to fit in, and now I'm human. I'm hoping by sharing my journey with the different challenges that I faced, other people can be inspired to change their condition and own life.
Mental health is a topic often stigmatized, and depression in particular can feel like an invisible burden. In England, 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem each year, while each week 1 in 6 people already battle a common issue like anxiety and depression. The numbers show that mental health issues can touch us all. Despite familiarity with depression, do we really understand it? How can we help our loved ones or us?
This documentary dives deep, using personal stories and expert analysis to shed light on depression, its impact, the stigma, the latest developments, and the road to hope. The recent Mental State of the World report examined over 500,000 people in 71 countries. It found that the UK was at the bottom of the list for mental well-being scores. There has been a steady rise in people contacting mental health services, which received a record 5 million referrals during 2023. This is up 33% from 2019.
Currently, services are not resourced to meet the increased demand, and there is a need for more staff, funding, and mental health beds. All these factors have resulted in increased waiting times for access to mental health care services. Waiting times differ depending on the required treatment and region, with patients waiting for weeks or over a year.
The situation suggested that it's time to prioritize more mental health. In July, following the newly elected Labour government, the King announced plans to improve mental health provision and update the Mental Health Act.
My ministers will legislate to modernise the Mental Health Act so it is fit for the 21st century, and improve mental health provision for young people.
Until changes happen, what can we do as a society? The answers rely on understanding lived experiences more deeply. That's why I talked to LW and Dave.
Why we're not probably showing the face at this time?
I would love to build boundaries more, and it allows me to choose who has access to me, so I don't return to a space where I felt unsafe or unhealthy.
I was picked on and bullied on when I was at school, and that very much took a toll on me. And that very much affected me in my relationships and how I viewed myself growing up. But as I got older and as I met people that were more open and understanding, I then realised that I wasn't to blame for what I went through.
The more I grew up, the more I got exposed to sexism, racism, Islamophobia and different elements. And the amount of abuse and harassment and things that I received at a young age. I was very, very young. All I knew is I was in a great deal of pain and I couldn't find a way out of that pain.
I am meeting with mental health professionals to understand more about depression, how to identify it, the possible causes, and what can help. The NHS Dr. Unaiza explains more about depression and its symptoms.
So it's just this state of constant sadness, tearfulness, even just withdrawing from your social environment for a prolonged period of time. Now, we can further break that down into categories. So physical, emotional, and mental. So for example, physically, you might feel very tired. So mentally, in terms of your thoughts, they become very negative.
So when should someone see a doctor?
So if you or someone you know has been feeling very sad, very tearful, empty, or just irritable, they're not able to sleep, there's changes in their appetite, they've lost interest in activities that they previously enjoyed, and it's gone on for 2 weeks. That's a time that you should start considering seeing your doctor, and the sooner the better.
So going through the period of time that you were feeling pain, can you describe a bit more? How was that?
So a lot of my symptoms or trauma isn't really psychological, it's much more physical. So I ended up being ill a lot. Like I've spent a lot of time going into hospital, going into A&E for either a stomach issue or sometimes I get heart palpitations. It was never, nothing was being diagnosed, you know. So for me, that was the hardest part. I shouldn't be feeling, or my body shouldn't be in pain because there's nothing wrong with me. Another element is change in behavior. So I've become very secluded. I felt defensive with myself in the sense of I had to protect myself from the world. Even if there were people that had good intentions, because of the pain that I was in, I kept everyone at arm's length. And I think that fueled the loneliness. And then that fueled not being able to express myself because I'm in isolation. And then I ended up being stuck in my head a lot.
Even getting out of bed or doing simple things like getting in the shower, brushing my teeth, eating, like things like looking after myself, daily maintenance can feel like climbing Everest.
What are some of the potential causes of depression?
I think depression is a very multifactorial condition. I know that there is a genetic link there as well, and studies have shown that. It does place you at a higher risk of developing depression, but it does not necessitate it. There are several other factors. For example, a person's socioeconomic status, any physical disabilities, being from marginalized and socially racialized communities like LGBTQ or different cultures. All these can come into play, or even just experiencing a very traumatic event or a series of traumatic events can place a person in a place where they can develop depression.
Multiple factors cause depression, and the more we understand it, the better our chances of preventing it. I'm intrigued by Professor Edgar's research on overlooked depression triggers, and I want to learn more about it.
The latest statistics in the UK for depression is that 16% of adults have suffered from moderate or severe depression. But if you look into that more deeply, it's 19% of women, 14% of men. So the groups that are most at risk of getting depression in the UK would be young people and females. What we found is that if a group of people have gone through a horrific experience like a world war, that often when they come to bring up their children appear to be traumatized by events that they themselves haven't experienced. So we tried to work out why it would be that the families of people who've been through terrible events but not experienced them themselves seem to find difficulties as they're growing up. There's two ways of thinking about it. The old idea was that the parents behave in a slightly different way because they've been through unimaginable horrors. They modify their behavior in terms of the child. And so it's a psychological relationship that's led to the child picking up a sort of sense of fear and worry. But more recently, there's work done on epigenetics. And the idea is that the DNA of the child isn't modified, but the way the gene transmits, the way the gene functions is changed by trauma experienced during childbirth and very young age.
What role does lifestyle play regarding managing depression?
A very important one, an instrumental one, I would say. What's your diet like? Are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Because your physical health is directly related to your mental and emotional health as well, so nothing exists in isolation. Believe it or not, exercise does release these chemicals that are really good for your body, really good for your brain, and it in turns help with coping with depression.
The Mental State of the World report found that wealthier countries tend to have lower mental well-being scores than poorer countries. Countries in Latin America and Africa generally scored higher, while those in the core Anglosphere, including the UK, were at the bottom. Three key findings of particular significance and concern could explain this: younger people getting smartphones at a younger age, increased consumption of processed foods, and weaker family bonds. A UK survey shows that despite the stigma decrease over the last few years, half the population feels shame around mental health. Also, over half with mental illness still feel ashamed.
Stigma of mental illness is deeply embedded in Western culture, and it operates in two areas. So there's a sense in which people around you are not empathetic and understanding of your mental illness, but also people self-stigmatize. So somebody who's feeling mental illness will often not want to talk about it because they feel ashamed, they feel guilty, they may be angry with themselves, and so they actually don't think about it, don't bring it to the attention of a therapist.
How does stigma around mental health impact the individuals that are experiencing mental health and depression specifically?
What starts happening is that your self-esteem starts getting negatively affected, and as a result you can be socially isolated, or people can make you feel socially isolated as well. And what it also then creates is this negative loop of thoughts where you think that you're not good enough, and it can lead to very dark thoughts of questioning whether or not you want to even exist.
I was always the type of person that would be very reserved in my mental health journey. I was quite embarrassed and ashamed by what I was going through. I also thought I was very much alone in what I went through as well.
I didn't want my brother to see me as being weak because I was the biggest sister. But once I had my guard down and once I knew it was possible, it changed my life completely. Even with the suffering and hardship, there is joy, and that's where people came into effect. People that saw me for me, even when I couldn't express myself. That was a huge help, and that took away the need to fit in. When I was doing my journey of self-reflection, and there's a poem that I wrote where I said, my ashes were scattered across the 7 seas, but I picked up every piece and I built this magnificent masterpiece, just
So going back to the challenging times that you had, and it lasted for some months at least, what helped you to get out of it, of that situation?
Self-reflection, fall in love with yourself. So it's really, it's like dating yourself. It's a cute journey. Date yourself and figure out what works and what doesn't work. So just be patient with yourself and know that there is a silver lining and there is light under the tunnel, no matter how dark it seems in that moment.
The things that help me is the work I've done through my blog. It's been writing things down and talking about with people. That's been able to really help me get through it, and that self-awareness and introspection has done wonders for me throughout the years. So I'll try and write a to-do list, and the list on that will be very small. It'll be like, okay, just get in the shower, just brush your teeth. But it all starts with those tiny little incremental things that you do, and that's been incredibly invaluable to me.
Reaching out to your family and talking to your family about your condition, finally, how did that help you?
I feel like it took 3 decades for me to realize that I have a community that can love me back. It changed my life completely. I never ever thought I would feel the love and joy that I feel right now. I don't want to get emotional, but I never thought this was possible for me because I had resigned. And now that I'm living in joy and to know this life is possible, I feel loved, I can taste my food now. So for me, it's not the same person. I feel light. I don't get sick anymore. I don't go A&E anymore. So I'm sure the NHS is very happy that I'm staying away.
Understanding and recognizing depression is key to dealing with it as a society. This includes knowing where to find professional help and all the different latest options. There are other alternative ways to get mental health support besides accessing it through your GP, self-referrals, 111, or in urgent situations, A&E. Various charities and programs offer drop-in options for mental health support to bridge the gap between services with long waiting times. One of the biggest charities is Mind, while Vital 5 is a recent NHS initiative. The Vital 5 programs offer drop-in sessions that target 5 things that greatly impact our health, including mental health. The aim is to identify a risk sooner by regular tracking. Vital 5 targets various communities. I am visiting a drop-in session for veterans to learn more.
The basic toolkit that we have is around Vital 5, where we're checking the blood pressure, having conversations around mental health, which are really important, and anything that matters. So in order to support women within the South East London program that we are running, is the idea around mental health conversations that we're having, and then signposting them whether to their GPs, and support from link workers or social prescribers and community pharmacies that are all coming together. What we are emphasizing is more around is prevention. The idea is not just one group, it's the idea where within South East London there are different communities and how we're going to support different people coming from those different communities. And I often think about intersectionality, for example, when we say you are a woman and then you might have a disability or you belong to a certain group, ethnic group, and you have different cultures and backgrounds, and how we can support those is tailored accordingly. What is important is understanding what their needs are and how we can adapt our services, how we can tailor those services to help those individuals that need us.
My next stop is one of the local Mind facilities. Mind provides a range of programs to support anyone with mental health issues.
We ask the question, what is it you think you need? And I think that's what our local community really appreciate about Mind, is that it's an active listening about what their wants are, coupled with our expertise and our experience. So we would provide them with a service that's tailored for their journey. One of the other pieces of feedback that we usually get from our crisis service is that we've literally saved someone's life. Because remember, when a person is at crisis point, they're suicidal or they're having ideation, the thought process isn't always rationale. There is prevention along the whole way to stop a situation from getting worse.
In an effort to reduce stigma, people have started posting their mental health pills. But what else should be done?
To combust the mental health stigmas that we're facing as a society in this day and age, we need to have more education, we need to have more open conversations, and we need to normalize it by having these open conversations from primary school all the way down to aged homes.
So, what should be the next step about mental health provision?
The British Medical Association, Mind, and other charities and organizations have been campaigning to improve mental health care. A key focus has been increasing mental health staff, funding, and hospital beds. Additionally, investing in early support hubs has been a priority in many campaigns.
The youth services are so powerful because that's where the prevention can start. That's where the real work can start. And we can actually stop people going into a mental health cycle in their adulthood. So there needs to be more focus on funding within youth mental health services. There needs to be a lot more focus on training people to understand the basics of a human mental health. A broken leg is just as impactful on a human being as is a broken heart. And I think that's where we need to bring our focus back to, the basics.
There's a lot of research, a lot of exciting research now happening in mental health. I mean, one of the big innovations is psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. Bonded treatments, where you've got psychotherapy plus some medication, are creating an opportunity for cures, people getting better in a much shorter period of time. So that's one big development that's happening at the moment.
My key takeaway is that the social environment significantly impacts mental health. Bullying, abuse, and harassment can cause long-term mental health issues. Supporting friends and family, seeking help, and increasing awareness about mental health are crucial. Also, early intervention and accessible support services are essential. The most important thing is to realize that we are not alone and help is available in different ways. The first step is to talk about it.
Mental illness is not a character defect, nor is it a personality defect. It's just like physical illness. It can happen to absolutely anyone, from a child all the way to someone of advanced age.
I'd very much like to give my younger self some of the empathy and kindness and understanding that maybe I felt like I didn't get during those periods of my life. And I think that's just so important, of being just an empathetic ear or a shoulder for people to cry on.
Anyone that feels like the end is the end, or you feel like it's too overwhelming, I promise you, like, you can get out of it. Because I didn't think I could get out of it, and now I'm out of it, and I'm on the other side, living like I'm 21 years old again.